when I was watching some videos today, I never thought I was going to come across these. And then when you do come across them and then you see things in them aren't quite right, which will be explained in the video, or bits of it will, it's quite ironic, isn't it? They're saying that they're investigators looking into all these wrongdoings to the people after we've died, but there's things wrong with the footage. So what the hell is going on here that they make these stories? Is it really just to keep us in terror? Because that's what it looks like to me. Watch this video and then leave your comments afterwards. It's all absolutely bananas. I don't know what the hell's going on. What the hell are we living in? I just feel really sorry for the people. Really, really sorry for everybody that watches this and the people. It's not funny anymore.
Funeral home shocker.
Another funeral home reached out to help following the state shutdown of Swanson Funeral Home in Flint.
As we first told you yesterday, it is cited for deplorable conditions.
7 Action News reporter Kim Russo talked to a local family caught off guard by the closing and went in search of that owner.
Neighbors say this is the house in West Bloomfield Township where the owner of Swanson Funeral Homes in Flint lives. His name is ONeil Swanson II. We wanted to give him a chance to respond to allegations from state inspectors that at his funeral home there was a maggot infestation, bodies left decomposing for months in an unrefrigerated garage, and many more violations that are now impacting grieving families. As you can see, the logo on this Escalade in the driveway matches the logo for Swanson Funeral Home in Flint, a funeral home accused by state inspectors of having, quote, deplorable conditions. We could see and hear people inside this house, but no one answered the door. We also reached out to the owner of Swanson Funeral Homes in Pontiac and Detroit. Their owner released a statement saying his son owns the business in Flint and it is not legally connected to his businesses.
Our minds are going crazy because we don't know what's going on.
Pete Lazo says he heard the state force the funeral home to shut down just hours before his mother-in-law Dora Ottaway's scheduled visitation there. Fortunately, Swartz Funeral Home in Mundy Township immediately stepped up. The funeral director there told him when he went to pick up Dora's body, conditions at Swanson disgusted him.
They could not believe what they were seeing. It was unbearable, made his stomach turn. I just couldn't imagine.
They quickly took her body from those conditions and prepared her for a visitation in just hours at no charge.
Knowing that there's people out there willing to help.
While no one answered the door to face us today, the owner of Swanson Funeral Homes in Flint can expect to face the justice system. State inspectors are handing their findings over to the state attorney general's office, who will decide whether or not there should be felony charges. In West Bloomfield, Kim Russell, 7 Action News.
The state revoked his mortuary license after reports of decomposing bodies inside his funeral homes and other disturbing allegations.
So why was ONeil Swanson II front and center at Aretha Franklin's high-profile funeral?
7 investigator Heather Catallo joins us now with a look at how Swanson could potentially be in trouble yet again with the state. Heather?
Carolyn and Dave, ONeil Swanson II refused to talk to us the last time we investigated his Flint funeral home, but he had no problem talking to reporters from Hollywood and national networks about Aretha Franklin's lavish funeral. And that has the families who say he shattered their trust furious.
Decomposing bodies in a maggot-infested garage, blood-stained casket pillows, complaints about employees working on bodies without protective gear. Those are just a few of the allegations that prompted state investigators to shut down Swanson Funeral Home in Flint last year. Licensing officials also revoked the mortuary license of ONeil Swanson II. At the time, ONeil Swanson Sr., the owner of the Swanson Funeral Homes in Detroit and Pontiac, said his son had no legal or business connection with his father's business. In a statement, Swanson Sr. even said, quote, "The allegations the state has made against the Flint home are shocking and go against every principle of mortuary science." Despite those statements distancing himself from his son, both father and son played a starring role together in the national and international coverage of Aretha Franklin's funeral. The Detroit-based Swanson's funeral home provided the classic Cadillac LaSalle hearse that carried the Queen of Soul to her final resting place. While fans flocked to the public viewing, ONeil Swanson II gave interviews to CNN, Entertainment Tonight, even to 7 Action News.
I'm just proud to be a part of providing a ceremonial tribute like this one.
I can't believe he's allowed to do this.
Patricia Williams also doesn't believe the ashes she received from Swanson Funeral Home in Flint back in 2012 were from her mother. Williams says ONeil Swanson II never gave her a straight answer when the funeral home could not find her mom's body for days.
It's incredibly painful. We just want to find out.
Williams filed one of the nearly 100 complaints against Swanson that the state licensing division has been investigating. Because his mortuary science license was revoked in April, state officials say he cannot work as a funeral director. So why was he calling himself that during interviews?
What does that say?
ONeil Swanson, funeral director.
SWANSON, the second director.
When Williams saw Swanson on Entertainment Tonight last month during the Franklin funeral coverage, she was devastated.
It wasn't a slap, it was a punch in the face and in the gut. And then all the calls started coming to me. Are you watching this? Do you see this?
The state has fined Swanson $34,100. He has only paid $5,000 of that fine that was due back in May. The Attorney General also charged Swanson with 10 felony counts for failing to fulfill funeral contracts. Just days after the glamour of the Franklin funeral, Swanson faced a judge in Flint for those felony charges.
Is he working as a funeral director?
No, we're not going to answer any questions, okay?
His license has been revoked, and he was introducing himself as a funeral director at Aretha Franklin's funeral. So is he working as a funeral director?
Answering any questions at this point.
What would you say to those families who don't think they got their own loved ones' bodies back?
Guys, we're not going to be answering any questions at this point.
Swanson Funeral Home in Detroit released a statement to us saying ONeil Swanson II was at the funeral as a longtime friend of the Franklin family, and they regret if his statements to the media created any erroneous impressions about his relationship to Swanson Funeral Home Incorporated. But state officials say they can use information from stories like this to open and investigate new complaints, and they will be reviewing the coverage to see if Mr. Swanson was working as a funeral director. Carolyn?
Wow, tough for so many families.
So, we're going to look a little bit more deeply into this because I noticed a few things. Either people are really tall or they're really short. Look at the size of that reporter to hit them. And then, what I noticed was that none of it looks right. She's not very pretty either, is she? But anyway, none of it looks right. His face on her, the shadows here, and what goes on the jacket. So, I just filmed it again. Not very pretty, is she? She looks like a man. Yeah, his shoulder goes all skew with, and look at the other one's jacket. So, what that means is this isn't real. What it means is we've got a huge, great reporter, and I've seen it quite often now. I've been mentioning, why is the reporter so big? I've mentioned it before in videos, and I'm noticing it in here, which means they've made all this up. And why would they do that to the public? Why would they make all this up? Why can't they ever just report the truth? And what the truth really means. Look at his ear. Look at his face. What is that? What is it? What is going on? You can see he's superimposed in the guy on the left, which means the guy on the right, and the woman and the reporter are all superimposed into the story, his story. Look at his face, the one on the right. Oh. Anyway, so this is just adding this little bit. Hopefully you can see it and see what I'm talking about. It's unbelievable. Oh, look, let's go back to that a minute. I'm going to stop that. I'm going to go back to here. Right, just go back here a little bit. It looks like he's got £2 in his hair, or an E and a 2. Do you see that? 205. There's an E and an I. Oh. There's an S. Do you see that S in the front of his head there? Let's just zoom in a little bit so you can see it better. Sometimes zooming in does not make it clearer. But, well, it looks like a pound sign, but it could be another 2. The letters there, do you see them? I think they're better at more of a distance. I just hope you can see them. But anyway, let's put the video on. Yeah, so what a load of rubbish. It's all rubbish. So they're all in on it. Every story has to be fake. And this will really upset a lot of people because they've had people, you know, we've got to go somewhere when we die. No one wants your relatives, you know, when you're grieving, to go through any of this. So they have to make this bad. What's that? Because they're taking the bodies or something? Yeah, look at that. He's just not real. Look at his hands. Look at the guy behind him. Look at that. How bizarre is that? Oh. Anyway, we're moving on with the video because there's more news reports about this case, which is a load of rubbish anyway. But let's continue.
Full of decomposing bodies, stained casket pillows, loved ones mixed up at funerals.
The horror stories emerged after the state shut down the Swanson Funeral Home in Flint just last month.
Yeah, since then, many families have been demanding answers, so we're digging deeper to find them.
7 investigator Heather Catallo has been poring over complaints about this funeral home that goes back several years.
Disturbing complaints about employees working on bodies without protective gear and forged death certificates date all the way back to 2012. Despite these dozens of complaints, it took the state 5 years to shut Swanson Funeral Home down.
We deserve to know. We deserve to know what happened.
Patricia Williams does not believe the ashes she received from Swanson Funeral Home in Flint were from her mother.
You stand by your loved one, even in death, you want to make sure that things are done right, and we feel like we failed her.
After a long battle with cancer, 73-year-old Myrna Duffer passed away on January 7th, 2012. Patricia says her mother's hospice caregivers recommended Swanson's because they promised a quick turnaround for cremation. But Patricia says when she started calling the funeral home nearly a week after her mom's death, she could not get a straight answer about whether the body had already been sent to Tri-County Cremation Services or not.
She was not there. They couldn't find her at the funeral home.
Patricia says the crematorium didn't know either. After days of waiting for answers, Patricia and her dad, retired Detroit police officer Robert Duffer, went to Swanson's in person, hoping to talk to the owner, ONeil Swanson II. They wanted to know, where was Myrna?
They shuffled us in a back room so we wouldn't make too much noise.
After an hour and a half in the back room, we started pounding on the door saying, hey, let us out of here. Something's not right. You could smell the stench of the bodies. There were white pillows laying around with body fluid on them. The carpet was all ripped up. There were cockroaches crawling up and down the wall, and at that point we knew we made a horrible mistake.
17 days after Myrna's death, the family finally received some ashes from Swanson's.
This is the unmarked bag we picked up.
The ashes were in this white bag and had no identification on them.
Inside the bag was a plastic bag with ashes with a bread tie. That's when my dad really had a fit. We knew then. We didn't have that anymore, so.
Patricia and Robert say they called the police, the governor, the Genesee County Prosecutor's Office, and Michigan's Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, known as LARA.
Do you think the state should have done more?
The state should have closed them down or investigated. There's so many unanswered questions. It's not only us. It's not only our family. It's not only my mom. Who knows who these people buried? Who knows who they put in a crematory.
Lara did not take regulatory action on the Duffer family's complaint, but in 2012, several other complaints started coming in to Lara's Michigan Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or MIOSHA. The complaints were about everything from people working on bodies with no protective gear to improper storage facilities for human remains. MIOSHA inspected Swanson's 6 times since June of 2012. They issued 16 citations and fined them $38,100. At the same time that MIOSHA was investigating, other inspectors from Lara were looking into allegations that Swanson's was forging doctor's signatures on death certificates. ONeil Swanson II and the funeral home were fined $10,000 for that. But Swanson's was allowed to stay open even after getting this complaint in September 2015 that alleged ONeil Swanson II, quote, runs a scam on people by holding bodies at the funeral home garage until they rot away. Then he rents a U-Haul and loads them all up and transfers them to another location to continue to rot away until he, quote, decided to cremate. Finally, just last month, the state shut Swanson's down. State officials said they again found decomposing bodies in a maggot-infested garage that had been there for months.
Is Mr. Swanson here?
We tried contacting ONeil Swanson II at his West Bloomfield home, but he has not responded to our requests for answers. ONeil's father, also named ONeil Swanson, owns Swanson Funeral Homes in Detroit and Pontiac and says he has no legal connection to the Flint location. As for the Duffers, they want some justice for Myrna.
I think that they should not be able to take human bodies and desecrate them and do what they want with them without following the rules of law.
In addition to this ongoing state probe into health code and licensing violations, there is now another investigation underway. The Genesee County Sheriff and prosecutor, as well as the Michigan Attorney General, are looking into whether criminal charges can be pursued. I'm Heather Catallo, 7 Action News.
Thank you so much, Heather. Now, because the state is still investigating those complaints, they cannot answer our specific questions about why it took so long to shut the funeral home down. We do have a detailed explanation of the investigation process on WXYZ.com, as well as instructions on how to file a complaint against a funeral home. Stephen?
One by one.
News alert.
And breaking tonight, an horrific find at Perry Funeral Home, the second of 2 funeral homes where fetuses have been found.
Detroit police raided Perry Funeral Home today, making those disturbing discoveries. And just moments ago, the state of Michigan shut it down.
7 Action News reporter Allie Hoxie is live on the scene where it's all unfolding. Allie.
Well, police have just left Perry Funeral Home behind me. Leaving the lights on inside. Here is what we know so far. Police have found 63 fetuses in total so far. 37 found in among 3 unrefrigerated cardboard boxes and 27 others found in freezers, all improperly stored according to police. Tonight I spoke with a mother who had a stillborn cremated here and has serious concerns with today's latest discovery.
I think about it every day. It's not one day I don't think about it.
Devisha Delahue says on May 23rd of 2017, she gave birth to a little girl, Deanna Michelle. But Deanna Michelle was a stillborn. Delahue says she came here to Perry Funeral Home to have her cremated. But when she got the ashes, she felt like something was wrong.
When I got them, I opened them up, and then instantly I just told my sister, my mom, say, this is not her. You know, I don't feel like this is my daughter.
Tonight, news of 37 infants and fetuses found in unrefrigerated cardboard boxes and an additional 27 found in a freezer is breaking Delahue's heart. She worries the ashes that she got may not be her daughter's.
I paid money for my daughter. You know, I want her, you know, and that's like sentimental to me. And just to have nothing, you know, it could just be just plain ashes, not even my daughter. It's heartbreaking to know that people are out here doing sick things like that.
The Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, or LARA, says some of the bodies date back to 2015. They have suspended the license of Gary Deek, the director of Perry Funeral Home. On top of today's gruesome find, LARA says Perry failed to certify death certificates, failed to secure permits for removal of dead bodies, and embalmed dead fetuses and infants without being told by a relative of the deceased to do so. Others in the community hope this raid at Perry Funeral Home and last week's discovery at Cantrell Funeral Home will send a message to other funeral homes in our area not taking care of precious loved ones.
This is a wake-up call. We're coming after you. We're going to find out that you're doing wrong by us, and you're going to answer for it.
Lara says all other bodies that were here at Perry Funeral Home have been taken to preferred removal services.
Allie, this is all just so disturbing, but we're also hearing that there was a scheduled memorial service that was supposed to actually be happening this weekend. What's going to happen now?
That's right. There was a memorial service scheduled for this Sunday, but Laura is telling us they are working with the family to make other arrangements at a different location.
All right, Allie, thank you so much for that live report tonight. Now, this story will no doubt continue to unfold over the next several days. Be sure to stay with us both on air and online at WXYZ.com for the very latest of
several decaying bodies from a vacant mortuary. We've heard the family running the business tell us that they have done nothing wrong.
Police see it differently, arresting Rachel Johnson, the wife of one of the twin brothers who ran the funeral home with her before the landlord started evicting them all. Fox 4's Brandon Todd is at the Fort Worth Police Department with the abuse of corpse arrest. Brandon.
Remember a few weeks ago, we did this one, the zigzag hands, when that person there is supposed to have a disability, lost their legs, and then had children and was this amazing person, ended up being an actress on the Rocky Horror Show. So it was the same person. But watch the next bit of video, count how many zigzags you see.
Only Fox 4 was there as Rachel Johnson pulled up in her Range Rover, was swarmed with law enforcement at her South Arlington home. Police spent little time at the home, then took her away. The owner of Johnson Family Mortuary was in cuffs the next time we saw her at the Fort Worth Police Department. Apparently she wasn't expecting a lot of attention, dressed in a throwback Wonder Woman t-shirt, sweats, and flip-flops. She faces 7 charges of abuse of corpse for 7 bodies found inside the Johnson Family Mortuary Tuesday that were in various stages of decay.
Oh, none of those bodies could be identified. None of the 7 bodies could be identified visually.
Johnson only yesterday professed her innocence to alleged victims, at times even crying.
And I wouldn't want this for my loved ones.
She's sad and crying because she got caught. She's not sad and crying because she feels bad for us.
Relatives of Victoria Vasquez, one of the bodies that was supposed to be cremated but never was, couldn't be happier to see an arrest in the case.
And I still can't believe it. I just knew justice would come through. When she said the truth would come out, the truth would come out. It is, and it's coming out, and I couldn't be more happier with the results.
The 8th body found inside, Chui Mwangilwa, was not part of the charges, although a friend of the 42-year-old from Zambia told us her wishes for her body to be shipped back to Africa were not honored.
I just hope the body goes home because that's what she asked for. She asked the body to go back home to Zambia, and that's what the Zambian community in the USA did.
Dondre Johnson, Rachel's husband, ran the funeral home with his twin brother Derek. Fort Worth police say there are 7 counts of the same charge for Dondre Johnson, who Friday morning bonded out of jail from an unrelated contempt of court charge. Not only did the twin brothers not have a license to operate the mortuary, They were fined by the state when they ran D&D Johnson Funeral Home and were eventually shut down in 2009. According to documents obtained by Fox 4 regarding the investigation by the Texas Funeral Services Commission into one complaint, they are presuming to be more than they are to the general public. Their illusions of grandeur and inflated egos are blindsiding them from following the letter of the law. What we have here is an issue of unlicensed representatives portraying themselves as funeral directors and doing so in an untrained and unprofessional manner.
And this is just the beginning. My closure will not be until we're sitting in front of them at Cincinnati.
Now, there were 2 stillborn infants found in that mortuary. Right now, the medical examiner is resorting to DNA to identify them. Steve?
All right, Brandon,
and bodies left unrefrigerated for months.
It was even harder than the actual death itself to know that something like this could have actually happened.
The doors to the Swanson funeral home long since closed, the building boarded up, and for the families who've gone through emotional turmoil with this funeral home, the wounds are still fresh.
Just devastation that, you know, someone we loved so much could be treated that poorly after the death.
When Kendra West's brother, Sean, died unexpectedly, their family used Swanson's in Flint.
And we didn't get his cremains back in a timely manner like we should have. It took us almost a month to get them back.
Because of the wait, they were forced to hold a memorial without his ashes. Ashes they began to question after the government shut the funeral home down in 2017.
It was a difficult situation, a very difficult time, knowing that we had an urn filled with ashes of who? What?
Since they've confirmed the cremains are Sean, and now the owner of Swanson's, ONeil Swanson II, is pleading no contest to 2 felony counts. He'll have to pay $75,000 for selling funeral contracts without a license.
It's not enough. It's more like a kick in the face. Paying back $75,000 is not replacing what everyone has lost and went through.
These charges do, however, at least bring a little closure.
Not enough, but a little bit of peace of mind.
Reporting in Flint, Scott Walchek, WNEM TV5.
Cremated, but weeks later you discover their body in the garage of the funeral home.
That's what one Detroit man says happened to him, and he can't get that image out of his mind.
7 Action News reporter Ronnie Dahl is live outside the funeral home on Detroit's east side. Ronnie, did you get any answers?
They forgot to put something in the footage.
Well, we're still working to get some of those. Sir Juan Jackson's mother died Christmas Day. The family chose this funeral home to handle the arrangements. They had a memorial service, said their goodbyes. Then he made the discovery in that garage.
That's my mother. That's all I had.
Sir Juan Jackson was at his mom's side when she passed away Christmas Day. January 2nd, family members gathered at Andrews and Hardy Funeral Home to pay their respects. His mother had wanted to be cremated, so they thought the urn at the memorial contained her ashes, but they didn't.
During the funeral, we didn't even know that my mom was in the back of the garage with her body back there.
Turns out Reynalda Jackson Bandari hadn't been cremated yet, and more than a month after her death, she still hasn't. Sir Juan says he didn't know that until mid-January when he came to the funeral home to take care of some paperwork.
They opened up the garage and my mom was still sitting there in the box.
When you say box, describe that to me.
A cardboard box. Usually you go to the Eastern Market and you can get a box spare ribs, and they come in a box and they have the tape wrapped around and you just tear the tape off. That box. It tears me apart. I wanted to break to my knees because I've already seen my mother in a box and it hurts.
Nobody with the funeral home would do an interview with me, but I'm told Sir Juan's mom hasn't been cremated yet because the family still has an outstanding bill. Sir Juan says he's been trying to work with them until he says they told him they would drop off his mother's remains free of charge to his home.
I said, are you serious? Bring my mother's dead body back to me. What am I supposed to do with her body?
He is so distraught over this entire situation. Now, an employee with the funeral home did tell me that his mother's body is still here at the funeral home, but that she has been embalmed. But at this time, they are not confirming whether or not her body is still in the garage. That outstanding bill $850. For now, we're live on the city's east side. Back to you.
Ronnie, such an injustice here. Can the state step in to help this situation out at all?
Yeah, we've been on the phone today making a lot of phone calls, and you know, he has reached out to DHS and they're helping. I think they pay up to $675 for funeral costs, and that money is being routed here to the funeral home. However, that's going to be applied towards the bill. He still has to come up with that $850. In the meantime, his mother seems to be just in limbo. He wants to give her the proper goodbye.